Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. After going through World War II from a 10,000-foot view last week, we're zooming into the Greater German Reich and moving back to the start of the war, well, actually the start of the Nazis coming to power, as we play Black Orchestra from Starling Games. Our goal in this game is to assassinate Hitler, with the Gestapo and other deputies harassing us at every turn. There are a few ways we lose. 1, if all of our conspirators are in jail. 2, if we need to draw an event in Stage 7 but can't. Or if we draw documents located in Stage 7, which is a card that basically just says you lose the game. So we've played this game before on the channel a few times, so to mix it up today, we're going to use what's known as what's suggested in the rulebook as the Trusted Lieutenants variant. How it's going to work is we'll be able to assassinate any deputy we want, but there will be one deputy that will be designated as trusted that we'll have to assassinate in addition to Hitler in order to win the game. So the military support for them, and I'll explain this more when we move over to the board, the military support for the deputies will always be 2, but otherwise all of the other rules for the attempt to plot will apply. So the theory behind this is that even if we assassinate Hitler, the deputies, and especially the trusted lieutenant, will still continue the war. We'll roll for that when we move over to the board, but let's work our way over to the board and start with today's conspirators. Our first conspirator will be Sophie Scholl, civilian student activist. A little bit of backstory on her. Sophie Scholl grew up surrounded by family and friends opposed to the Nazi regime. After graduating secondary school, she became active in the White Rose Nonviolent Resistance Group. Sophie and her brother, Hans, were convicted of high treason for distributing anti-war materials and executed by guillotine on February 22nd, 1943. I hadn't known this until earlier this year, but she was actually convicted in front of the Notorious People's Court, presided over by Roland Freisler, who met his own karmic end, but we won't get into that right now. So we will get into her special ability, though, once she gets motivated. At the start of your turn, add 1 die to the descent track. You can't rise above committed motivation. So anything that involves reckless, we don't want. Sophie starts at timid motivation and medium suspicion. So the suspicion is relevant to plot attempts and how many eagles you can roll on those before you get arrested. I'll explain more about how that works when we actually attempt a plot. Sophie will be doing everything in blue, so we'll take her pawn and move it over to the train station where the game starts. So that's it for Sophie. Now let's go meet her co-conspirator. Our second conspirator today will be Klaus von Stauffenberg, Wehrmacht, Colonel Ersatz. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, my German is terrible. Stauffenberg generally supported Hitler during the first stages of the war. He was involved in a number of military engagements, but the atrocities committed along the Eastern Front finally pushed Stauffenberg into the resistance and to the forefront of Operation Valkyrie. He was selected to place a bomb under the conference table during a meeting with Hitler. Though the bomb killed 4 people and wounded most of the others, Hitler emerged largely unscathed. Stauffenberg was executed in the early morning hours of the following day. He was actually in charge of placing a bomb in the Wolf's Lair, which was Hitler's Eastern Front headquarters. Again, Hitler survived, and the rest, as they say, is history. But Stauffenberg will be in green, so timid motivation, medium suspicion. Pawn will move over to the train station. So with that, both of our conspirators have moved over to the board, so let's join them over there. I think we're a touch further out than I'm going to want to be when we come back up top at each stage, but I'll use this to kind of show where everything is. So I mentioned the military support a little bit earlier. We're actually playing on standard difficulty today, so the lowest Hitler's military support can go is 3, which once again, that will be what we target for Hitler. For the deputies, the military support will always be 2. Speaking of the deputy, let's go through everybody and their penalties. So if you start your turn on a space with one of these deputies, you'll take that penalty. So for Hitler, who starts the game up at Deutschland Hall, he will decrease your motivation by 1. Then at Gestapo HQ, we have Himmler, who if you start your turn in his space, increases your suspicion by 1. Goebbels at the Ministry of Propaganda cancels your special ability. Hess will make you discard a card. He starts in Hanover. Bormann, Hitler's private secretary in Nuremberg, means you can't conspire, which is one of the actions you can take. And Goering, who starts in Munich, the head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, makes you discard an item. He starts down in Munich. So you can see we've got the envelopes of the items all around the board. Anything with a B we can always move to. We'll start off with only the stage 1 spaces being accessible. Before we get into the game, though, we do need to roll for the Trusted Lieutenant. So we'll bring the dice tower into shot. I think we can put it right there and still... Yep, we can still see everybody. So I've got a D4 here. You're probably wondering, Phoenix Knight, you've got 5 deputies. So why are you only rolling a D4? The reason I'm rolling a D4 is because for the Trusted Lieutenant, for the Trusted Lieutenant variant, I'm not considering Hess, because there are cards that make Hess leave the board. So it does make sense to me to consider Hess for the Trusted Lieutenant variant. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to roll a D4, working down from the board. 1 will be Himmler, 2 Goebbels, 3 Bormann, 4 Goering. That is a 4, so our Trusted Lieutenant for this game is actually going to be Goering. He's the one we have to assassinate, along with Hitler, in order to win the game. So now we can bring the dice tower out of shot for the time being. I'll put it back up here. I think the D4 will stay with the game. With that, we're all set up to get into this one, so let's drop down to the board and we'll start with Sophie. For Sophie's first action, so on your turn you check for Hitler and deputy penalties, as long as you're not in prison. So since we're not in prison, we check for Hitler and deputy penalties. Nobody's at the train station right now, so we're clear there. Then we can take up to 3 actions. Take an action component on a card, which will be indicated by an arrow. We can collect an item, but we have to reveal it first, so it's 2 separate actions. Conspire, where you can roll... I'll explain how a conspire action works when we get into it. We can deliver an item, so you might be seeing glimpses of text under here. So you can deliver an item somewhere for an effect of some kind. Take a dossier action, which is draw a card to add to your dossier. Hand limits right now at timid. Hand limit right now at timid is 2 cards. That goes up as you move up through motivation, and you can hold more cards. You can move. You can try to release a prisoner unless you're at extreme suspicion, and I'll explain about how that works when we need to. Or transfer, which is 1 action per item or card that you're giving to somebody else. So with that, and then we draw an event card at the end of the turn. So Sophie's action 1, she's going to move up to Sport Palast. Action 2, she'll reveal the item there. You can see the text, but it won't be relevant since the item is still there. So we will find explosives, and then we'll draw a card from the conspirator deck. So Sophie will find a plot already, a sniper. You have to be in the required elements. You have to be in the same space as Hitler or the deputy you're targeting, and at reckless motivation. This is not going to be a plot Sophie's going to want. Optional elements: if you're obvious, you get a bonus die. If you have weapons, you can get 1 die per, because it's got an asterisk on there. And there's a note up here that says you can use multiples of this element, and an intel gets you an extra die. So that might be a plot Sophie tries to pass off as fast as she can, but that was Sophie's 3 actions. So we draw a card from the event deck. We find the Anschluss, and there's yellow text up here. If the stage's key event is in play, ignore this card and draw another. Austria is peacefully annexed by Germany. Raise Hitler's military support by 1. Move Hitler and Goering to Munich. So Goering's already in Munich. Hitler goes to join him there. and Hitler's military support goes up by 1. That was the end of Sophie's turn. Klaus is actually going to does he need to conspire? Do we need to conspire right away? Yeah, we might as well. So the way the conspire action works, and I mostly wanted to take this action so I could explain it. We'll bring the dice tower in shot. You can spend up to 3 actions to roll 1 die per. So Eagles raise your suspicion. Targets go up on the descent track, and then if you roll a number, there's a 1, a 2, and a 3. You get that many actions back. So we're going to put all 3 of Klaus's actions into this and see what happens. Two targets go up on the descent track. That's actually kind of helpful. And then 1 action back. So Klaus will... And Conspire you can only do once per turn. So Klaus will actually draw a card from the Conspirator deck as well. So he will find a plot of his own. Derail train. You can only attempt this plot immediately after an event card moves Hitler. You must be at committed or reckless motivation to attempt the plot. You get a die for that. Optional elements, civilian, intel, and maps. This might be a plot that we give to Sophie as fast as we can. But that will do it for Klaus's turn, so we need an event card. We find Parade in Berlin. Hitler celebrates Heroes Remembrance Day in Berlin. Move Hitler, Goebbels, and Hess to the Zeghaus. All Wehrmacht in Berlin lower their suspicion by 1. While this is the current event, ignore 2 eagles on all plot attempts. So Hitler, Goebbels, and Hess to the Zeghaus. So Hitler, Goebbels, and Hess to the Zeghaus. All Wehrmacht in Berlin lower their suspicion by 1. So Klaus goes down to low. And while this is a current event, ignore 2 eagles, except we're not doing anything with eagles with plots right now. Sophie's turn. I think for action 1, she'll move up to the Ministry of Propaganda. Oop. Action 2, she'll reveal the item here, so she will find weapons. And action 3... she'll draw a card, so she will draw Devise plot. As an action, you can discard this card. Reveal cards from the top of the Conspirator deck until you reveal a plot. Add that card to your dossier and discard all other revealed cards. So that brings Sophie up to a hand size of 2 already. And then we need an event card, so we will find Berlin speech. Set Hitler's military support to its starting value, so he goes back down to 3. Flavor text on here. Hitler gives a speech to supporters at a local arena. Hitler and Goebbels to the Sportpalast. So Hitler and Goebbels to the Sportpalast, thankfully ducking Sophie. And all conspirators in Berlin lower their suspicion by 1. So Sophie now goes down to low as well. And then that's Sophie's turn. Klaus is actually going to conspire again. We'll put all 3 of his actions into it, mostly because I want to make sure we keep mostly because I want to make sure we can get those targets off. Probably doing something with motivation right away. Let me put the dice tower right there. Okay, so this washes out one of the suspicion gains that Klaus made. The target goes up. So we have 3 on the descent track, which means we can either push well, Hitler's military support is at 3 right now, which is its starting value. So now we can bump somebody's motivation up, and I think we're going to bump Sophie's motivation up to skeptical. Mostly because I want to get access to her ability as fast as I can get it. And then Klaus gets 3 actions back. So we've got 2 plots already. What does Klaus want to do? I think Klaus will go to Hanover for action 1. Action 2, he'll reveal the item here, so he will find... Now this does not want to focus. There we are. Weapons. Wow, we got a lot of weapons close, but no plots that need them. And action 3, he'll draw another card from the deck. So he will draw... Slow News Day. Fast action, discard this card. Do not draw an event card this turn. Which I don't think we need to do that just yet. So an event card for Klaus's turn, we find... Munich Agreement. Neville Chamberlain negotiates a treaty with Hitler. This is the key event. So when this card is drawn, we'll move it to the... When the next event card is drawn, we'll move this to the side of the board. Remove it when the stage begins. Raise Hitler's military support by 1, so he's back up to 4. And then remove the next 2 stage 1 event cards from the game without revealing them. So 1, 2... I've got to remove from the game pile off shot. So that puts us at 4 events left in stage 1. And that's not counting anything that we're going to end up ignoring because the key event is now in play. So up to Sophie we go. Sophie, I think, will draw a card from the Conspirator deck. So we will find... High-ranking informant, fast action, discard this card. If Hitler's military support is 5 or higher, add 1 plot to the result of any plot. Add 1 target to the result of any plot attempt. I think the way we're going to rule this with the Trusted Lieutenants variant is we can only use this on Hitler because this would be too powerful if we used it on a deputy. So that's action 1 for Sophie. Action 2 will move to the Chancellery. And action 3 will reveal the item here, so we'll reveal a badge, which we don't need yet, I don't think. No. Alright, so event for Sophie's turn. If the stage's key event is in play, ignore it and draw another. It is in play. Next up, Party Rally. The Rally of Greater Germany is held at Nuremberg. Move Hitler and all deputies to Nuremberg. So I'll move that. So we'll get the key event for the Munich Agreement over to that side of the board. And Hitler and all deputies are going to have a party in Nuremberg. So basically what I'm getting out of that is Nuremberg is a no-no space. You get no-no touched by the bad people. That seems really dangerous to me. Klaus's turn. Let's actually just keep revealing items. So for action 1, we'll move to Adlerhorst. And here we'll find, for action 2, a signature, which we'll grab for action 3, because we can always use that to get our suspicion down if we need to. And then we see text here. It might be a little bit hard to read, but -2 suspicion, you only for explosives. So now we need an event for Klaus's turn. Kristallnacht. Outrages are committed against the Jewish community. All conspirators raise their motivation by 1. Move Hitler and all deputies to their starting spaces. So Hess goes back to Hanover. Bormann's on his starting space. Hitler to Deutschland Hall. Goebbels to the Ministry of Propaganda. Himmler to Gestapo HQ. And Goering down to Munich. All conspirators raise their motivation by 1, which brings Klaus up to skeptical and gives us Sophie's special ability. And funnily enough, it's her turn, so we get a free... die on the descent track. Thankfully, she doesn't have any penalties. So action 1, she'll draw a card, so Sophie will draw. Concealed pistol. While in your dossier, it's an illegal card which will probably come back to us during the Gestapo raid. Treat this card as both a weapons item and a conspirator card. It can be discarded, transferred, or delivered in the same way as an item and doesn't count against your item limit. Alright, then action 2. We will pick up the badge and reveal the text on the Chancellery. -2 suspicion, you only for weapons. Action 3 will draw another card. So Sophie will draw. Decrypt communications. Action, discard this card. Reveal the next 2 event cards and either remove one from the game and place the other face down on top of its deck, or place both cards face up, face down on top of their event deck in any order. And that's another illegal card. So that was all 3 of Sophie's actions, which means we need a card from the event deck we find. Assassin caught. The assassin or assassins nearest to Hitler, the conspirator or Maurice Bavard confesses his plan to shoot Hitler during a parade. The conspirator or conspirators nearest to Hitler raise their suspicion to high, and Hitler moves to the Chancellery. Oh, that's bad. So that'll knock Sophie's motivation down, assuming Hitler's still there at the start of her turn. And it raises her suspicion to high. That's problematic. That's more problematic. Alright, then over to Klaus's turn. That was actually the last event in Stage 1, but we don't advance into Stage 2 until we resolve an event from Stage 2, and the Gestapo raid does not count for that. So Klaus is going to conspire. The reason I'm conspiring here is because with Hitler and the Chancellery right now, if I can use the descent track to get Sophie up to committed, then I can drop her down to motivated and still keep the free die on the descent track. Or moving Hitler would be a better idea. We get 5 actions back, so not completely unwelcome, but it still leaves Sophie in a bit of danger. So for action 1, Klaus will draw a card, so he will draw. Devise a plot as well, which I'm moderately happy with our plots, but we need to get them shuffled around. Action 2 will move down to Tannenberg. Action 3 will reveal the item, so we'll reveal more weapons. Action 4 will draw another card from the conspirator deck, so Klaus will find. Another slow news day. Action 5 will draw one more card, so he will draw. Acts of Sedition. As an action, discard this card. Either lower Hitler's military support by 1, or all conspirators in your space, including you, raise their motivation by 1. Okay. Yep, I'm just making sure we're not hitting up on hand limits. So our first event from Stage 2. If the stage's key event is in play, which it's not, so we have a party rally. The Rally of Peace is held at Nuremberg. Set Hitler's military support to its starting value back to 3. Move Hitler and all deputies to Nuremberg. So we're going to have a party in Nuremberg once again, but we actually potentially get something out of it this time. Hitler, Himmler, and Goebbels. While this is the current event, any conspirator that moves into Nuremberg sets their suspicion to low. So I'll get this all out of the way. We'll put that up there. Thankfully, Sophie managed to get Hitler out of there. But before we jump into Sophie's turn, let's move back up top to take a look at how the board's changed. You may have noticed some of the numbers on top of the spaces on the board. That indicates what stage they open up in, except the B spaces being Berlin, and those are always accessible throughout the entire game. There are also some spaces that have a 7 with a line through them, meaning you can't move into those spaces during stage 7. The other symbol of note is this symbol over here, which looks like an eagle on top of a fortification. That means it's a fortified space, and there are some plots that are sensitive to having fortified spaces. So if you need a fortified space, that's where you would go to attempt to plot those plots. But more importantly than that, we'll see what that is. Looks like that's just a little scrape off the board. But the important thing is, since we've moved into stage 2 now, we have these two spaces open. We have Vienna and the Berghof opened up. The Berghof is one of the most dangerous spaces in the game because Hitler and his deputies like to go there a lot. So we do need to be very mindful of that. Ideally, the strategy is duck in, get the item, and immediately get out. So, yeah, we'll need to keep an eye on that. But we can drop back down to the board and get into Sophie's turn. Alright, so Sophie's turn starts off with, thankfully, no Hitler and deputy penalties. We'll get another die up on the descent track. Then, my plan right now is to get Sophie's suspicion down to low. So, we'll move her 1 to the train station, 2 to Nuremberg, which will set her suspicion to low. And then 3, she is not staying in Nuremberg. She's going to nope out to Munich. So we need a card from the event deck for Sophie's turn. Czechoslovakia invaded. If this stage's key event is in play, which it's not, Czechoslovakia surrenders to Hitler with little resistance. Raise Hitler's military support by 1, and move Hitler to Vienna and reveal the item there. So Hitler moves to Vienna, and we reveal the item there, so we will find a map, which I believe... Okay, so yeah, the plot we want to give to Sophie actually uses the map. But we ultimately need to get the two of them together and swap plots. So over to Klaus, I think the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to do we need to conspire is the question. I'm not completely sure we do, because unless we pull a Gestapo raid, and there's only the possibility of 1 in stage 2, we're going to get that anyway. So so I guess the question here is, do I just get them together and swap plots? Yeah, I think we gamble that the next event is not going to be a Gestapo raid. So we'll get the two of them together. So for action 1, I'll move Klaus over to Munich. Then actions 2 and 3, they're going to swap plots. So Sophie's going to take the derailed train, and Stauffenberg is going to take the sniper. Even though he's not Abwehr either, our next priority is probably going to be picking up weapons. So stage 2 event. Invasion of Poland. The Wehrmacht enters Poland and the free city of Danzig. This is the key event. So this is sensitive to everything. Raise Hitler's military support by 2, so he's at a 5 right now. And again, that being the key event means we're probably going to fly through stage 2 very quickly. Sophie being up next, we get a free die on the descent track, which will let me push motivation up. Now the question is, do I push her motivation up again so she can actually attempt a plot, or do I push Klaus's up and get him his special ability? This is a tough one. How quickly can we get items that we need? Sophie can go get a map right now on her. Sophie's going to go get a map on her turn. We're which will give her which will actually give her 3 dice against a military support of 2 for one of the deputies. Yeah, I think we gamble here. I think we'll push Sophie's motivation up, which means she can attempt to plot right now. So for action 1, Sophie's going to move to Vienna. Action 2, she'll grab the map. And then if it's stage 2 in Vienna, -2 suspicion, you only for any item. Then action 3, she's going to nope back out to Munich. And then our event for stage 2, our event for Sophie's turn. Visit from Bormann is not the... Okay, so this... Bormann checks up on local party leaders. Move Bormann to the space of the nearest conspirator or conspirators. So we'll move him to Munich. And we ignore the if the conspirator is alone part because they're both stuck there. So the key event moves to the side of the board. That gets discarded. And then we move into Klaus's turn. So unless Bormann moves, Sophie won't be able to conspire either, but Klaus can't conspire anyway. So for action 1, Klaus will reveal the item here, so he will find intel, which I think I need to leave for Sophie. Action 2 will move Klaus over to Tannenberg, and action 3 he'll grab the weapons. And the text we reveal there is -2 suspicion, you only, for poison. So our event for stage 2, Nazi-Soviet pact, except the key event is in play, so that gets discarded and we draw again. This time we draw. Anti-Semitic laws. All Jews are required to carry ID cards and passports stamped with a J. All conspirators raise their motivation by 1. Sophie can't go up to reckless, but Klaus does go up to motivated, so now we have access to 4 actions in a turn. Sophie's turn next. She can't conspire. She can, however, grab the map for action 1. Action 2, I am not risking getting stuck in the Berghof, so she's going to move to Tannenberg, and then action 3 to Adlerhorst. Ideally, I'm able to duck in, grab the item, and get out, but I don't think even Klaus can do that. He'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and spend a turn in the line of fire. But anyway, that was all 3 of Sophie's actions, so here we find assassin caught. Georg Elser admits to planting a bomb at the Burger Braukeller where Hitler was speaking, and anybody who's German, I will apologize for my pronunciation of German. It is horrendous. The conspirator or conspirators nearest to Hitler raise their suspicion to high, which I believe that is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is Klaus, who's going up to high. Move Hitler to the Chancellery. Okay, we are definitely not ready to try to assassinate Hitler. They're not at a best of 4 dice against a military support of 5. No thank you. Alright, so that one's done. Klaus now has 4 actions he can take on his turn. And we need to get him up to reckless motivation to attempt the... which we could probably do, actually. So I think for action 1, we'll move Klaus up to Adlerhorst. I'm going to use that later. I want to use that later. Action 2 up to Hanover. Action 3 will grab the weapons, which reveals if any deputy is present, -2 suspicion, you only for any item. Actually, we both need intel now that I look at it. Action 4, we'll move to... Goebbels should still be in Nuremberg. So where is Klaus going to move? I think Klaus is going to move... what we need to do is get his... let's conspire, actually. I really don't have much to do right now, so... Bring the dice tower right there. We'll see if we can maybe get a free target up there. Or some actions back to me dig through the deck a little bit. An eagle is not what I had in mind, Klaus. Which unfortunately puts him up to extreme suspicion, and worse yet, makes him vulnerable to a Gestapo raid. So here we find... Visit from Hess. Hess unexpectedly arrives with special instructions from the Führer. Move Hess to the space with the nearest conspirator or conspirators. If that conspirator is alone, they may lower their motivation by 1 to move to any legal space and lower their suspicion by 1. So Hess moves to Sophie, and they may lower their motivation by 1 to move to any legal space and lower their suspicion by 1. That would leave Sophie at... That would actually give us access to the Berghoff item if we want it. And Sophie would still be motivated to have access to her free die. Yeah, that's probably fine. So we'll lower her to motivated to move to any legal space, and that's mostly why I want that's mostly why I wanted this event, or why I wanted Sophie to take this. Or why I don't mind moving Sophie to give us access to the Berghoff item, because we're not usually going to get that. So Sophie gets so for Sophie's turn, we start off with a free die. We managed to duck the discard a card penalty from Hess. Then I think she is going to... What is she going to do? Do I want to get greedy, or do I want to just grab the item and get out? Get out of the Berghoff. Let's grab the item and get out. I mean, we're going to end up with a situation where Borman is going to make it so Sophie can't conspire, but I think we'll just have to bite the bullet on that one. So for action 1, Sophie will reveal the item in the Berghoff. She will find a map, which she'll grab for action 2, in case we need to dump something. And then the text that's revealed, if Hitler is present, -2 suspicion, you only for any item. Those 2 actions, then 3 to go up to Munich. So we'll flip over an event from stage 2. Propaganda strategy. Top deputies meet to discuss a new propaganda campaign. Move Bormann and Goebbels to Munich and reveal the item there. Right, so Bormann... Oh boy, this is going to be a problem. So Bormann and Goebbels to Munich. And there's no item there. So that's actually going to be a big problem for Sophie, because that means we're not going to get the free die up there next turn. So Klaus has 4 actions. We have him in shot. We'll start off with bringing the dice tower in shot so we can conspire. I'm going to throw 3 actions into this. Even if I have 4 actions, I can only spend 3 into this. That is, wow, 3 targets. So we'll just leave the 1 die up on the track, and then with 3, we will push Klaus up to committed. We do need to be reckless before we try the sniper plot, though. So we need an event from stage 2, we find. Strategy session. Move Himmler, Goering, and Hess to Adlerhorst. Fortunately, they're in Nuremberg, so Himmler and Goering, and Hess was already in Adlerhorst. So that's all done. That was our last event from stage 2, but remember, we don't move to stage 3 until we resolve an event from stage 3. So Sophie doesn't get her free die on the descent track, and she can't conspire. That's obnoxious. Alright, so let's move her up to Nuremberg for action 1. Action 2 will reveal the item here, so we will find keys. Action 3 we'll move to the train station, and then our first event in Stage 3, London bombed. The Luftwaffe conducts bombing raids over London. Raise Hitler's military support by 1, so it's at 6 now. Move Hesse to Prague and reveal the item there. So Hesse to Prague, and the item here is poison. So with that, that's our first event from Stage 3. So once I get these out of the way, come on. There we are. Let's move back up top and see how the board's changed. As the Nazi war machine continues its march east, we actually reveal 5 spaces. We actually unlock 5 spaces out toward Poland. So we've got Posen, the Prague, which Hesse just moved to and revealed, Anlage Sud out to the east of Poland, Warsaw, the capital, and Wolfschanze, which is actually Hitler's Eastern Front headquarters. And the Wolfschanze and Anlage Sud are both fortified spaces. Neither of our plots are worried about that, but there are plots that will be. So we do need to keep that in mind. Anyway, let's move back down to the board and see what Klaus is doing with his 4 actions. For action 1 for Klaus, he's going to move to the train station with Sophie. Action 2, he'll take the concealed pistol from her. We actually need to get Klaus up to Reckless. I don't want to have him try the plot while he's at extreme suspicion, though, so we need to knock that down pretty quickly. Action 3 will move him over to Posen, and Action 4 will reveal the item here, so we will find another map, which I think Sophie needs a map, but she has 2 of them already. So our next event in Stage 3, Jews targeted. All Polish Jews are required to wear a yellow Star of David at all times. All conspirators raise their motivation by 1. Move Himmler to Warsaw and reveal the item there. So Himmler to Warsaw, and we reveal more intel, which I'm getting a brief look at the text there. Sophie's turn. If I can get Sophie up to die up on the descent track, if I can get Sophie back to committed, I might be ready to try to derail a train the next time Goering moves. But let's start off with a conspire action for Sophie. Where do I want to put the dice tower? Right here, I think will work. Not what I had in mind, though. So Sophie's suspicion goes up to high, but we do get our 3rd target, which I will use to push her back up to committed. I'm not feeling comfortable right now with trying any plots. I've got to get suspicion down first. Klaus is already at extreme, so we need to push the down button on that pronto. Our event in Stage 3, visit from Goering. Goering conducts an unscheduled inspection of local Luftwaffe installations. Move Goering to the space of the nearest conspirator or conspirators. If that conspirator is alone, they may discard any number of items. For each item discarded in this way, they lower their suspicion by 1. Goering, the nearest conspirator to him would be Sophie. It's items, and Goering would make us discard another one? Yuck. The question is, do I risk it? Because in the situation I'm in right now, Sophie could try to derail the train, but if I roll one eagle, plot's detected. Whereas if... No, I think I can work with this. So Gehring will move to Sophie. Then she'll discard a... She's got an extra map, so I'll discard that to bring her suspicion down. And then actually that'll be her next turn. So Klaus... Yeah, that was just Sophie's turn. So Klaus needs to get his suspicion down pronto. What was the... he doesn't have a badge, does he? No. I think, though, we could afford to go 1, 2, discard the weapons, and then move to the Ministry of Propaganda to plan on picking them up. Because I do need to knock Klaus's suspicion down. So 1 to the train station, 2 to the Chancellery, 3 will turn in weapons to knock his suspicion down by 2, and then 4 will move to the Ministry of Propaganda and plan on picking up the weapons to replace it. So a card from the conspirator, or from the event deck. Germany bombed. The RAF sends bombers against targets in Germany. Raise Hitler's military support by 1, so he's maxed out at 7. While this is the current event, add 1 eagle to all plot attempts. Yeah, we're not touching plots this turn. Up to Sophie's turn, we'll discard the badge. Let's see, action 1. Civilian intel map. So she's already rolling all the dice she can. Action 1, well, first of all, we get the free die-up on the descent track since Sophie is still committed, and that's as high as she can go. So action 1, I think we'll move over to Posen. Action 2 will grab the map. And then the text that's revealed in Posen is -3 suspicion distributed for badge. Action 3, let's draw a card. So Sophie will draw. Airplane access. Action, discard this card to move to any legal space on the board. And then our event card from stage 3. Invasion of Norway, and the stage's key event is not in play. German forces invade neutral Norway. Raise Hitler's military support by 1, except Hitler's military support is already maxed out. So down to Klaus we go. Action 1, he'll grab the weapons. And the text that's revealed in the Ministry of Propaganda is -2 suspicion, you only for a signature. Action 2 will move to the train station. Action 3 to Posen. Action 4 to the Wolfschanze. Try to start revealing some of these items that are moving, try to reveal these items as we're gaining access to the spaces. So our event card is a Gestapo raid. Nobody, I don't think, is at extreme suspicion. Nope, we're both at medium. For each illegal card in a dossier, that conspirator must either choose to discard it or keep it and raise their suspicion by 1, and then return all dice to the descent track. I'm just going to leave the 1 die that's up there because it'll go back on Sophie's turn anyway. So we'll pretend that we'll move it off for a second, but okay. So illegal cards. I want to keep the concealed pistol for Klaus, but I will discard the Acts of Sedition. As for Sophie, I think we'll dump both of those, because they're not doing much for her anyway. And then for stuff that's worried about the active event, whatever the last event was would stay the active event. Up to Sophie's turn, the die goes right back on the descent track. And then she will also conspire. I could potentially set Klaus up to... I'd like to knock his suspicion down a little bit further, but I could potentially set him up to go try to assassinate Gehring next time he comes into range. A target and 2 actions back for Sophie. So we'll get the dice tower out of shot. Let's see, action 1. Action 1, I think she'll move to Warsaw. Action 2 to Anlaj Sud. And then the event for Sophie we find. Visit from Hitler. Hitler requests an immediate meeting to discuss the Western offensive. Move Hitler to the space of the nearest conspirator or conspirators. If that conspirator is alone, they may set both their motivation and suspicion to their starting levels. Let's see, Hitler's up at the Chancellery. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. The nearest investigator is Klaus. Let's see, motivation and suspicion to starting levels. Let's not. I wouldn't mind knocking the motivation or the suspicion down, but the motivation is going to drop too far, and it's going to drop 1 as it is for the start of Klaus's turn. So he's down to motivated now. He still has his 4 actions, though. So for action 1, he'll reveal the item here he will find. Another signature. Action 2, he'll go to Warsaw. Action 3, he'll grab the intel. And now here's a dilemma, because we just flipped over -3 suspicion distributed for intel, but Klaus's plot needs intel. So action 4, I could dump it and get his suspicion all the way down to low. I think we're just going to... that is a decision, though. He's already at high. I think I'd rather have him nope out right now. That's going to put him way out of range of Gehring, though. That's probably fine. We'll move Klaus over to Anlaj Sud. So the next card for stage 3. Sea Lion postponed. Oh boy. Hitler postpones the invasion of Britain after heavy losses during the air campaign, and this is the key event. All conspirators lower their motivation by 1. So Sophie drops to motivated, which means she still has access to her ability. Klaus drops to skeptical. He does not have access to his. That won't last long, though, because it is Sophie's turn. The third die goes up, and will push Klaus's motivation right back up to motivated. So he'll still have access to his special ability. Action 1 will reveal the item here, so we will find... Come on. Poison, which is perfect because I see that I'm cheating and I'm seeing the text. Action 2, I'll grab the poison, and then action 3, I'll turn it in for -3 suspicion distributed for poison. Both of our investigators are going to low suspicion. Then an event card from stage 3 we find. Key event is in play, so we ignore that. Next card from stage 3. Another one where the key event is in play, so we ignore that. Now we're potentially drawing for stage 4. So if we resolve an event here that isn't a Gestapo raid, we would be into stage 4. And we are. Visit from Himmler. Himmler continues secret investigations in the area. Move Himmler to the space of the nearest conspirator or conspirators, and all Wehrmacht lower their suspicion by 1. So Klaus goes down to skeptical once again, and then Himmler moves to Anlaj Sud. Then that was a stage 4 event, so I'll get this out of the way. And then we'll move back up top to see how the board's changed. The Nazi war machine is edging ever closer and closer to invading the Soviet Union. So stage 4 reflects that. I did forget to mention that stage 3 unlocked Zurich, which is a +1 suspicion, but there are other cards that you can potentially play there for other benefits. Stage 4 sees the fall of Paris, though, as we see 2 stage 4 spaces out east open up, including Paris, which can knock your suspicion down in a hurry, but at the cost of military support, which right now with Hitler's military support being completely maxed out, is not that terrible a space to go to. We also gained Stockholm, Riga, and the 2 concentration camps, so Auschwitz and Treblinka now open up, which we can use to fly motivation up in a hurry if we need to, and it might be tempting for Klaus, to be perfectly honest. We'll see how things unfold there. But with Himmler on top of us, we need to move down to Sophie. With Himmler in the space, Sophie goes up to medium suspicion, but we also still get a free die on the descent track. So for action 1, Sophie, I think, is most definitely noping out. The only question is, where is she going? Action 1, she'll move to Warsaw. I don't need to knock suspicion down just yet. I don't think I really have anywhere I want. Well, Action 2 will go to Wolfschanze. Action 3 will head for Riga to try to reveal some of these items. And then our next event is going to show why I didn't consider Hess for the Trusted Lieutenant variant. Pearl Harbor attacked. Hitler declares war on the United States after the attack by the Japanese. Lower Hitler's military support by 1, so it goes down to 6. Remove the next 3 Stage 4 event cards from the game without revealing them. So 1, 2, 3. We'll go into my removed from the game pile. And we remove the Hess Deputy token from the game. Oh, it looks like I've got Riga just out of shot. So there we go. Where is Hess? Here you are, in Prague. So Hess has been removed from the game. I know I've got a baggie for these. Where I put them? Ah, here we go. Alright, so Hess is gone from the game. Down to Klaus, his motivation also goes up to medium because of Himmler. Do we want to fly his suspicion up right now? Yeah, I think we kind of have to. So for action 1, he'll move over to Auschwitz, which will most importantly push his motivation up by 2, but his suspicion by 1. So he now has access to his ability and can attempt plots unless he needs to be reckless for them. Let's go. Do need that intel, that's the only problem. Actually, if I'm planning on okay, so I should probably figure out my plan. If I'm going to use the sniper on, who am I going to use the sniper and the derailed train on? I could probably use the derailed train next time Goering moves. So that was action 1. Action 2. He's full up on items, so there's no point in... Let's draw a card. So we'll draw a card for action 2. He will draw. Military Secrets. This is one of the cards we can use in Zurich or Stockholm to lower Hitler's military support by 1. So I think we'll move action 3 to Prague, action 4 to Nuremberg, and we'll flip an event over. We'll find another Gestapo raid, so anybody extreme suspicion is arrested, which is nobody. For each illegal card in a dossier, so if he's clear, the conspirator reaches extreme suspicion, so he'll discard military secrets and concealed pistol to go up to extreme suspicion, and then the die on the descent track comes off for about 2 seconds. Because once we go back to Sophie's turn, which we are now, it will go right back on. So for action 1, Sophie will reveal the item in Riga, so she will find keys, which she's a civilian, so we can keep her suspicion low. Action 2 will draw a plot, or draw a card, so Sophie will draw an ambush. You're in the same space as Hitler or a deputy, in any 3, 4, or 5 space. Die for keys. You can ignore an eagle for a badge and multiples on that. And 2 dice for all conspirators in the same space. Action 3 will actually pick up those keys, and then we'll reveal text there. If civilian, -2 suspicion, you only for any item. And then our plot for, our event for stage 4. Yugoslavia surrenders. Yugoslavia is captured by the Wehrmacht. Raise Hitler's military support by 1. Move Himmler to Paris. Delightful. And then the event, the flavor text on the Gestapo raid. I don't think we've gone through that. The Gestapo execute violent searches and raids against suspicious citizens. Delightful. Alright, down to Klaus's turn. He's got 4 actions. Since Hitler's military support is maxed out, I'm more concerned with getting his suspicion down this turn. So let me reposition the camera just a little bit. Okay, so we can see what all I've got in mind. Action 1, he's going to move to Adlerhorst. 2 to Wolfschlucht. 3 to Paris, mostly so I can get his suspicion all the way down. And then action 4 up to Wolfschlucht. And then we need an event from the stage 4 deck we find. Operation Barbarossa. Hitler breaks the non-aggression pact and invades the Soviet Union. This is the key event. Raise Hitler's military support by 1. Goering to Posen. So Sophie, she's not committed anymore. Blast it. This would have been a great opportunity to try to take Goering out, but alas, no luck there. So Sophie's turn will move us back up toward Riga. Tip the camera up just slightly. Put a die on the descent track. And then for action 1, Sophie will actually conspire. I want to try to get her motivation up because that would have been a golden opportunity. We would have been rolling 1, 2, 3, 4 dice against a military support of 2 for Goering. But alas, we couldn't take advantage of it. So I'm going to try to get her motivation back up. I said motivation, not suspicion. So Sophie is at extreme and vulnerable to a Gestapo raid right now. Although we already had one in the stage, we did just have to remove 3 cards. So Sophie's 1 action is going to be to draw a conspirator card, so she will draw. Urgent Communique. As a fast action, discard this card to move 2 deputies to any 1 space. We can use that maybe after we knock her suspicion down to try to move Goering again. But we need an event first, so here we will find Hitler assumes command. Hitler takes direct control of all Wehrmacht operations. Lower Hitler's military support by 1. Move Hitler to Wolfschanze and reveal the item there, except we already know it's a signature. So we'll bring the dice tower out of the way so I can move the key event. Then it will be Klaus's turn, which will take us back over to the Western Front. Action 1, he'll reveal the item at the Wolfschlucht he will find. A badge. Right now he's all full up. Action 2, he'll move to Adlerhorst. Action 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, will draw a card for 6, so he will draw. poison food in the same space as Hitler or a deputy in any Berlin space for a die. Civilian, multiple poison, and intel. So that's not a great plot. Action 4, he will draw a card and we'll plan on probably discarding the poison food. Let's see what we draw. Covert operation. Action, discard, fast action, discard this card to ignore an eagle from the result of any plot attempt. So yeah, we'll discard the poison food because that's not a great plot. Then stage 4 we find Africa Corps. Rommel begins his campaign in North Africa. Raise Hitler's military support by 1. Come on. Bormann and Goebbels to Prague. So Bormann and Goebbels have been joined at the hip pretty much all game. Sophie's turn will take us over to... will take us up toward the east. So for an action, we'll toss an extra map to bring our suspicion down by 2. I wonder how the timing would work on this. So if I use that to move 2 deputies, so if I use urgent communique to discard to move 2 deputies, actually that derailed train's a fast action, so never mind, that would work. The only thing I don't like about it though is I'm still left with... I think I can work with this actually. So we're going to... how do we want to do this? Do I want to knock her suspicion down one more time before I try it? Yeah, I think this is a tough one. Because that means I'm risking... we have more keys out on the board, so I think I'm okay with this. So action 2, I'll discard the keys just to bring her suspicion all the way down. Because I don't want to take any... oh, wait. I almost forgot. At the start of her turn, we do get the 3rd die. Actually, wait a minute. Is it... okay, I did forget to move the turn symbol, but it is Sophie's turn. So we do get the 3rd die. Sophie's back up to committed motivation. Right, okay, so where were we? Oh yes, we discarded 2 items to bring her suspicion all the way down. Then I'll use urgent communique to move Hitler and Goering. We'll move them to any one space. I guess we'll move them to Treblinka just for poetic justice. And then since we're moving Goering, I will actually attempt to derail the train he's on. So Sophie is back up to committed motivation. So remember, we can only attempt this after an event card moves... actually, I wonder... after an event card... so it's probably something from the deck, but that... I'm going to look this up, but I have a feeling I wouldn't be able to attempt at doing it this way. We're gonna go with it for now, but like I said, I'll look this up and get an official ruling later. So we're going to attempt to derail Goering's train. So after an event card moves him, Sophie's at committed motivation, so she's going to get a die for that. Then she's a civilian, so she gets a bonus die. And then she's going to use intel and a map to get 2 more dice. So we've got our 4 dice over here. We'll bring the dice tower in shot. And against Goering, dice tower can go right there. Against Goering, we're looking for at least 2 targets and a military support, because we're against a military support of 2. And because of Sophie's suspicion, I did forget to mention this. Because of her suspicion, we can roll up to 2 eagles safely. Which, that is rather unfortunate because we didn't roll any eagles, so the plot didn't get detected. But we also didn't roll enough targets, so Garen gets to Treblinka safely. Which is very unfortunate. But no help, no help for that at this point, so that's rather unfortunate. So that was 2 actions, and then we tried to derail the train, but we didn't get there. Action 3 will move to... I kind of want to stay close, though, so we'll draw another card. So Sophie will draw. Another airplane access. She's got 2 of those now. Then looking into stage 5, we find a Gestapo raid. So conspirators at extreme suspicion, both of us are at low. For each illegal card in a dossier, Klaus will go up to medium, and then return all dice on the descent track to the supply, but there were none there. So that won't put us, remember, that won't put us into stage 5 yet. So what does Klaus want to do now? Because it is his turn, which will bring us back to the west. If we could get him up to reckless motivation, that would be great, but... well, let's conspire and see what we can do about that. We'll probably go digging for more plots. Just so we have some options available. And instead we'd make Klaus vulnerable now to a Gestapo raid. 1 target up, but he's at extreme suspicion. That is not what I had in mind at all. So with 1 action left, Klaus will draw a conspirator card, so he will draw. Stockpile equipment. As an action, discard this card. You can choose an item from the discard pile and add it to your conspirator sheet. We gotta discard something, don't we? Let's discard a slow news day. I mostly haven't been minding the events. So another try at stage 5. Eastern push. The Eastern campaign intensifies, and the key event is not in play. Raise Hitler's military support by 1, which it's maxed out. All Wehrmacht to Borisov, which I don't completely mind that. It's just off shot, but I'll point that out. Now, when we move back up top to see how the board's changed. The entire board is now open to us. We have the last of the stage 5. We have the last of the stage 5 spaces now over in the Soviet Union. So we've got Borisov, Wasserburg, Smolensk, and Vervolv. 3 of those, the farthest east spaces, are fortified spaces. So once again, we might be need to be sensitive to those for plots. But we should be able to get access to those items pretty quickly. So let's move down to Sophie and see about getting those items. Sophie's got to try to rebuild after her disastrous attempt to derail Goering's train. So action 1, she'll move up to Wasserburg. We also got to die on the descent track. I am usually pretty good about remembering that, but sometimes I forget. So action 2 for the item we find. Intel, which I will grab for action 3. And the text that opens up there, -3 suspicion distributed for weapons. Which it might not be a terrible idea to get Klaus up there to get his suspicion down, with him being vulnerable to a Gestapo raid and all that. So, our event card. Rommel defeated. The Africa Corps is routed at El Alamein. Lower Hitler's military support by 1, so it's down to 6. And remove the next 2 stage 5 event cards from the game without revealing them. So 1, 2. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 events in stage 5 left. That could be a bit of a problem. Klaus still has his 4 actions, so for action 1, he will move up to Wasserburg. Action 2, he'll toss the concealed pistol that he's been planning to use on one of the plots to lower suspicion by... Actually, it'll be his suspicion down by 3. Action 3 will go back to Borisov, and Action 4 will reveal the item, so we'll find keys here, which Sophie could potentially come down and pick up for her ambush plot, but we need an event from stage 5. We find Casablanca Conference. The Allies call for the unconditional surrender of the Axis powers. All conspirators lower their motivation by 1, which brings us both down to motivated, and discard 1 card from their dossiers. This I don't completely mind. Klaus will discard a slow news day, and Sophie will discard devise a plot. So that's all handled. Sophie's turn. We'll get our 3rd die on the descent track. And whose motivation do I want to push back up? Let's push... I feel like Sophie is just about ready, is just about rebuilt to try her plot again. I'd like to get her a map if possible, but 3 dice against Goering, I feel okay with that, so we'll push her motivation back up. Action 1, she'll move down to Borisov. Action 2 will grab the keys to prepare for the eventual potential ambush. Then the text that's revealed is -3 suspicion, distributed for a map. Action 3, actually she needs the map. Action 3, I think we'll move over to Smolensk and plan on trying to reveal the item their next turn. Then our next event for Sophie's turn. Visit from Goering. Move Goering to the space of the nearest conspirator or conspirators. All Abwehr lower their suspicion by their motivation by 1. I think Sophie's got to try it again. So the nearest conspirator right now is Stauffenberg. But yeah, I think Sophie will try to derail the train again. So we'll bring the dice tower back into shot. I'll tip down just... do I want to tip down? Let's actually zoom out just a touch. There we go. So Sophie's going to try to derail the train again. She's at committed motivation, so we get the die. Get the die for that. She's a civilian, so that gives us a bonus die. And then she's going to throw her intel into this to get a 3rd die. So once again, we're up against a military support of 2, and we can roll up to 2 eagles safely. That's unfortunate. So we rolled 1 eagle, which means the plot doesn't get detected, but we only rolled 1 target. So Goering moves to Klaus, and we don't have any Abwehr to lower suspicion. So that is very unfortunate. We've tried to derail Goering's train twice and failed twice, which is very unfortunate. It's Klaus's turn. He will discard the signature to Goering's penalty. Let's see what we want to do here. I think for action 1, we are going to conspire. It's a little bit risky, but we've only seen 1 Gestapo raid, and there's potential for 3. So let's bring the dice tower right here. We'll dump 3 of Klaus's actions into this. So we have 1 action left, plus however many we rolled from this conspire. 7 actions left. Okay. So we can really set things up here. Action 1, he'll move over to Smolensk. Action 2, he'll reveal the item, so he will reveal a badge, which I think we established Sophie needs, so I'll leave that for her. So that was action 2, so we have 4 left. Action 3, actually this, okay, we conspired and it's 7 actions. First one was to move, second was, so we should have 5 actions left. Action 3, he'll draw a card from the conspirator deck. He will draw security clearance. While this is in your dossier, illegal cards are ignored during a Gestapo raid. So that was action 3. Action 4, he'll draw another card. He will draw a suitcase bomb. This was actually the plot that Klaus tried in the Wolf's Lair that failed. Wehrmacht, explosives, and badge. So actually now he needs the badge as well. Question is, who do we want? We've been building up for that sniper all game, though. So that was action. Okay, so right, I think I was leaving the badge for Sophie to pick up. So we should have 3. Okay, so action 1 was to move. 2. He's drawn 2 cards, so he has 3 actions left. We could pick up an item and... yeah, let's do that. Let's pick up an item for action 4. So we should have 2 actions left. Which item do we want, though, and where are we going with it? Are we going to give it to Sophie, or... I think we'll pick up a map. So 2 actions left, and do we trade the intel and the map over to Sophie in case Gehring moves again? I think we do, and we'll plan on having them stay put for another turn. So the event for stage 5... Berghoff retreat. Move Hitler. Okay, Hitler enjoys a visit to the mountains. Move Hitler, Bormann, and Goebbels to the Berghoff. While this is the current event, ignore 1 eagle on all plot attempts. So, Bormann, Goebbels, and Hitler. No, I'm not going to try to derail Hitler's train right now because his military support is still too high. Okay, so that's over to Sophie, which puts a free die up on the descent track. No deputy penalty to speak of there. Let's go action 1, grab the badge. And the text we pick up there is -3 suspicion distributed for explosives. So 1 for a badge. We could try to ambush Goebbels. Or not Goebbels, Gehring. But I'm not sure how much I like that idea because we're rolling... well, we're back to rolling 4 dice again against Gehring for the 3rd time trying to... oh no! We'd have to be able to move Gehring, so that's actually not going to work. Flip. We could go 2 to get her back to Berlin because we've got 2 copies of airplane access. Yeah, let's do that. So as an action, we're going to use airplane access to bring Sophie back to Berlin. I'll move the camera over. We'll bring her to Gestapo HQ. And then action 3 will reveal the item here, so we'll find another signature. And then an event from stage 5 for Sophie. A Gestapo raid, which really doesn't do much to us. So we're both at low suspicion. Each illegal card in a dossier, Klaus's would be ignored. Sophie doesn't have any. And the dice on the descent track get returned. So we kind of dodged it a little bit there. Klaus takes us back out east. I think action 1, he's going to conspire, putting 3 actions into this. Dice tower, perfect. So he has a total of 5 actions. Which means he gets... So we got 4 back, which gives him a total of 5 actions. So his last official turn action will be to draw a card. He will draw... Leaked Travel Plans. As an action, we can discard this card to move Hitler up to 3 spaces or a conspirator up to 3 spaces. So that was his last official action. Conspire action 1. This is extremely unfortunate. Because the Berghoff is not a fortified space. I think Conspire Action 1, we're going to devise a plot. See if we can find a plot that uses weapons, but hopefully for Wehrmacht. So let's see what we get here. No. 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 That would have been handy. No. No. Here we go. A coup d'etat. Required elements, you have to be in the same space as Hitler and in Berlin to roll a die. You can toss signatures for bonus dice, and all conspirators in the same space gives you 2 bonus dice. That might have to be the plot that we use against Hitler. So I think we'll go... 2, 3, and grab the signature for 4. Mostly because I want to prepare for that as well, and we've got at least one other signature on the board that we know about. Then our event from stage 5. Russian setback. This is the key event. The Wehrmacht is driven back from the gates of Moscow. Lower Hitler's military support by 1 and remove the next 2 stage 5 event cards from the game without revealing them. While this is the current event, add 1 eagle to all plot attempts. So Hitler's military support is down to 5. But doesn't do anything else besides that. So moving back east for Sophie's turn. I think right now we just reveal items in Berlin. So action 1 up to Deutschland Hall. We got a die on the descent track as well. Action 2. Come on. Explosives. And action 3 will move to the Zeg House. So now stage 6. Stalingrad surrounded. The Wehrmacht suffers its worst defeat of the war. Set Hitler's military support to its starting level. Ooh. That's a military support of 3, and that's our first stage 6 event. So let's move back up top and see how the board's changed. Okay, so the board actually hasn't changed at all with the advance into stage 6. But our bigger change is actually just off shot down here with Hitler's military support. Thanks to Stalingrad getting surrounded, we're actually at a military support of 3. So it wouldn't be a completely crazy idea to try to have Sophie derail Hitler's train rather than just going after Goering. We definitely have options on that front as well. But we do need to drop into... That was Sophie's turn, so we do need to drop down to Klaus. We're going to take a little bit of a wider shot here. We'll bring the dice tower into shot to start off with a Conspire action. We'll put 3 of Klaus's 4 actions into this. He'll get 5 actions back, so he'll have 6 total and a target. Which means as long as we don't get domed with a Gestapo raid, we should be able to recover this. So last official action, he'll discard leaked travel plans to move 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3 over to Gestapo HQ. Conspire action 1, he'll grab the signature. And we'll reveal -2 suspicion, you only for intel. Action 2, he'll draw a card, so he will draw. Moment of truth. Action discard, fast action discard this card to add 2 dice to a plot you attempt. Conspire action 2, he'll draw again. We'll plan on discarding probably one of the plots that we're not using. Poison parcel. Have to be in the same space as Hitler in Berlin. Signature poison map. I think this will be another one we discard. So that was 2. 3 will draw again. Mostly I'm digging for additional dice and rerolls here. Stockpile equipment, which could be handy because there's some stuff that we can use. I'll discard the suitcase bomb. And then last action, we'll draw another card. We will draw plane bomb, which can only be attempted after something moves him and have to be committed or reckless. Obver explosives and map, which will also discard that. Next card from the deck. Visit from Hitler. Hitler presents medals to the widows of fallen officers. Move Hitler to the space with the nearest conspirator or conspirators. While this is the current event, ignore 2 eagles on all plot attempts. Well. Okay, so here's a decision that we have to make. Hitler's military support right now is 3. We either let this happen, and if Sophie's suspicion go down to motivated, or we try to assassinate Hitler now. So we either let this happen, let Sophie's suspicion go down to motivated, which will still put a die up so Klaus can come in and try the coup. And so Klaus can come in and try the coup with more dice. Or we have Sophie try this now, rolling 4 dice and 3 have to be targets. How many dice would Klaus be rolling right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against a military support of 3. And if we get a Gestapo raid... So technically this isn't the active event yet, which means we'd still be subject to the Eagle penalty. I suppose if the plot fails but it at least isn't detected, Hitler would still land in the Zeg house and Klaus could still come up and try anyway. Yeah, I think we have to try it. So for the 3rd time this game, Sophie will try to derail the train, but this time she's aiming at the Führer himself. So we'll discard intel and map. We'll bring the dice tower into shot. Put it right there. Alright, so discarding intel and a map to get 2 dice. Hitler is being moved and she's a civilian. So this time our situation is a little bit more perilous. Because we need 3 targets. We can still roll 2 eagles safely and Klaus can ignore 1. Okay, so, right, that was unfortunate. So we still ignore so the plot isn't detected, but we only rolled 1 target. So the plot failed, which means Hitler moves to with the nearest conspirator or conspirator, so we can move him to either one. I think Sophie's going to get domed and take one for the team here, which is unfortunate, but there's really not much I can do about it. So Hitler's going to pay Sophie a visit, bring the dice tower out of shot, and then it'll be Sophie's turn. Her motivation will drop by 1, but the 3rd dice will still go up on the descent track, which will bump Klaus's motivation up. So I'm hoping I'm hoping Hitler will stay in place, and I don't have any way to hold him in place, so I guess we'll draw for action 1, so Sophie will draw. Convincing alibi, action discard this card to lower your suspicion by 1. Action 2 will draw again, so she will draw. Stalled investigation, action discard this card. All conspirators, including you, lower their motivation by 1. And action 3 will draw another card, so she will draw. Document atrocities. As an action, discard this card in Auschwitz or Treblinka. Lower Hitler's military support by 1, and all conspirators, including you, raise their motivation by 1. So Sophie's at hand limit. Now we need an event from stage 6, so we find... Berlin bombed. Move Hitler to the Chancellery. While this is the current event, add 1 eagle to all plot attempts. Confound it all. Flavor text on this. Berlin is hit with attacks from RAF bombers. Alright, so I don't want to... Well, we're at low suspicion anyway, so we could still try it. But I don't like the idea of going in with 1 guaranteed eagle. So Klaus is actually going to conspire. I want to see if I can if I can get motivation up again. I think we need to get... Do we want to get Klaus's motivation up or Sophie's is the question. Okay, so 2 targets and 3 actions back, which means as long as we don't get a Gestapo raid, we can push somebody's motivation up. So we'll get that out of shot, which means his last regular action will be to... Do we want to try the... No, I don't think we want to try the coup anyway. I think we will... We're all full up on cards anyway. We will look at this, aren't we? Suspicion's low. And I kind of like most of our hand, actually, so... Yeah, I don't really think we have anything we could discard right now. Except maybe for the security clearance, but that's protecting the moment of truth. Actually, a covert operation could possibly go, because our suspicion right now is low enough that I'm not worried about eagles, so we'll draw a card from the deck. We will draw... Kidnapping. Ooh, this could be an option. Wehrmacht, weapons, and signature. If I use that on Hitler if I were to use that on Hitler right now and risk an eagle, I would be rolling... How many dice would I be rolling? 1, 2, 3, 4... Actually, 1, 2, 3... Okay, 1 for the plot, 2 for Wehrmacht, 3, 4 for weapons, 5 for signature, and I could dump Moment of Truth to get to 7 dice. That would lose me the signature, but I could use stockpile equipment to get one of those signatures back. Yeah, I think we'll give it a try. I wasn't going to try to assassinate Hitler this turn, but I think I can work with this. So, right, so Klaus for action, Conspire action 1 will move into the Chancellery. Conspire action 2, he will attempt a plot, and he doesn't have to be reckless for this one. So he'll attempt kidnapping on Hitler. So he's in the same space as Hitler, which gives him a die. He's Wehrmacht, which gives him a bonus die. He's going to toss 2 weapons at this, which will give him 2 more dice. He'll toss a signature in, which will give him 5 dice. And then he'll discard Moment of Truth for a total of 7 dice. So he's against a military support of 3, which means... And I'm going to probably bring Covert Operation in because I expect I'll need it. So right now, Klaus is rolling 7 dice against Hitler's military support of 3. We can roll 2 eagles safely, and the covert operation will basically cancel the one from Berlin bombed. So let's see what happens here. Wow, that was a roll. So we didn't. So checking for everything, we didn't roll any eagles. So the plot wasn't detected. Then we rolled targets equal to, we actually rolled 4 targets to a military support of 3. So Hitler has actually been assassinated. But remember, because of the trusted lieutenant's variant, the game actually is not over yet. We still have to go assassinate Goering. So we'll discard the... So we actually didn't end up needing the covert operation, but we'll discard the kidnapping. We'll discard the kidnapping for the thematic reason that the plot was successful. That plot was successful, so they'll be watching for it again, which means all of these get discarded. All right, so with Hitler assassinated, now we need to concentrate on Goering. So with 1 action left, what do we want to do with that action? I think we just stock up on... We could just plan on trying to go after Goering. Well, we could work our way over to Goering. So now Hitler's military support really doesn't matter. What do we want to do? Klaus still has 1 action left, so I guess he will... Do I want to move him over to Sophie, or... What would I even do over there right now? We need to get her motivation back up. I think we'll stockpile equipment and plan on... And grab one of those signatures back for now. We can set up for a coup d'etat against... We can potentially set up for a coup d'etat, so we have a couple of plot options available to us. Stage 6 in the next event. Alright, key event is not in play. Kursk recaptured. Red Army tank battalions recapture the city of Kursk. Lower Hitler's military support by 1. It's already at the lowest it can go. Hitler to Anlage suit, except he's been assassinated. And Bormann to Posen. So Bormann up to Posen. Then coming to Sophie's turn, 3rd die on the descent track will bump her motivation up to committed. Alright, so for action 1, she will reveal the item at the Zeg house. Sophie will flip over. Explosives, which we don't particularly need right now. Action 2, she'll draw... Actually, we could go to... No, I'd rather wait on that. If I think Goering is likely to stay put, I'd rather work Klaus over there. Actually, we got a couple options if we can get the conspirators together. So let's start working in that general direction. So for action 2, I'll bring Sophie down to the train station, and then action 3, what would she discard right now? Probably the derailed train, because that hasn't worked for us 3 times. So Sophie will draw. History repeats. Action, discard this card to shuffle all discarded conspirator cards back into the deck, then add the top card of the deck to your dossier. We'll actually toss Document Atrocities instead. So next event in stage 6. Sicily invaded. Allies land in Sicily and open the southern front. Lower Hitler's military support by 1. Move Hitler and all Abwehr to the Chancellery. We don't have any Abwehr, and Hitler's been assassinated. Klaus's turn. I think we'll start... Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We could get... Sophie can't get there with... Actually, yes, she could. We'd be rolling 1, 2, 3, 4 dice. Yeah, I think as long as Gehring stays in place, we can probably work with this. So, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It would take all 4 of Klaus's actions to get there, but I think it's going to be worth the gamble. So he'll go 1 to the train station, 2 to Posen, 3 to Wolfschanze, 4 to Borisov. And I think I forgot to put a die... No. Because the third die bumped Sophie up to committed motivation. Right. So the event from stage 6... Slow retreat. If a conspirator, deputy, or Hitler is in a stage 7 illegal space, move them to the nearest legal space. The Wehrmacht continues to retreat. So both... Actually, this kind of works, too. To the nearest legal space. So 1, 2 would be Posen, which puts Klaus on top of Bormann, but I don't know how big a problem that's going to be. So Sophie actually now doesn't need the airplane access. So for action 1, that's still a stage 3 space. So Sophie will move into Posen, and then for action 2, we'll attempt the ambush against Gehring, targeting Gehring. So in the same space as Hitler, in any 3, 4, or 5 space, which that's a 3 space, so we get a die for that. Actually, I put the die up on track for Sophie's turn, so die for that. We'll toss keys into this. Both conspirators are in the same space, and I've got a badge in case I need it, so we'll bring that over. So we're trying to ambush Gehring. He's been the one that's been the slippery beast this whole game. It hasn't been Hitler that we've had problems with, it's been Gehring. But remember, we're against the military support of 2, we can roll 2 eagles safely, and Klaus will let us ignore 1 just to stay out of jail. Okay, that's a little more like how it's supposed to go. So, we check everything. So we checked for the number of eagles, but we rolled exactly none, so the plot wasn't detected. And then we rolled 2 targets, and per the Trusted Lieutenant's variant, the military support was 2 for the deputies, so Gehring has been assassinated as well. And because Gehring was our Trusted Lieutenant for this game, we have actually won the game. So let's move over to a special shot to wrap this video up. Well, I think one thing we learned from that game is student activists are apparently terrible at trying to derail trains, but I can send Wehrmacht officers on kidnapping missions, and that same student activist can actually rig a pretty good ambush, which seems a little bit weird to me, but whatever. It all worked in the end, so we were able to assassinate Hitler, and then just for curiosity's sake, I just want to see that document's located. There's what it looks like, but it was in the deck. It was probably about... looks like it was about a third of the way down. But, more importantly, that will do it for this playthrough of Black Orchestra. I was debating putting this game on my Tack Up Wargaming list this year, but I wanted to make the list more about the traditional war games, and I didn't think this one would fit the bill anyway. Plus, it's a little more behind the lines anyway, but let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Wednesday we'll debut a new game on the channel as we play Role Player from Thunderworks Games, and next week we'll pay a brief visit to the Arkham Horror Files as we play Elder Sign. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.